Parasites are the problem, not Lyme disease, not viruses. How do I know? After starting mold avoidance, my Lyme disease went away easily. I haven't treated Lyme disease in like 3 years. The same thing often happens for chronic fatigue syndrome patients. They do mold avoidance and their symptoms go away. So this becomes like a family tree. Think of a family tree with 2 branches, Lyme disease and chronic fatigue syndrome, but they both lead down to the same root. I noticed this to start happening when one of my mentors who is helping me with mold avoidance was sharing her whole journey. Now, we had very little in common when it came to the superficial levels of illness. Lyme disease was my superficial level. Chronic fatigue syndrome was her superficial level. And doctors and researchers and patients, they never figure this out. They treat Lyme disease as completely separate and chronic fatigue syndrome as completely separate. So what we started noticing was that as we got more and more clear of mold and as we peeled away those top layers like viral infections for her and Lyme disease for me, all of a sudden our experiences were extremely similar. And a lot of it boils down to having these intestinal worms or intestinal parasites. I know it's kind of gross. That's where our family tree or the symptoms met at the bottom. Now, I remember getting intestinal parasites at the very beginning of my illness, before my Lyme disease even flared up. And this is a common experience for people with Lyme disease. At that time, I ate some contaminated snow on a hike. I was an idiot. I was 20 years old. I was on a hike and dogs were peeing and pooping everywhere. It was this melted old snow that had been there for a long time and I was super thirsty, so I ate some of the snow. I know, super stupid. This was 20 years ago. And I had this horrible GI intestinal disruption. I was passing all kinds of weird materials and my stomach was messed up for months. But later on, all of those weird GI symptoms kind of went away. I thought the parasites were gone, but what had really happened was the parasites were nesting themselves inside sort of like a goo of mold toxins and heavy metals. So the parasites just kind of went to sleep, even though they were messing up my body. And then a Lyme disease came on top of that. Now, after you peel away the layers of Lyme disease and you do mold avoidance and detox that mold out of your body, what do you know? All of those parasites wake up again because their protective shield is gone. That's when parasite medications and cleanses all of a sudden work really well, maybe too well. And that's when you realize that your illness has parasites as the root cause, just like chronic fatigue syndrome people do as well.